If you're looking to use Monday.com for project management, then this video is for you. I'm going to walk you through 3 different ways that you can manage your projects within Monday. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tara. I'm the founder of a company called Simple Day. We're Monday.com Platinum Partners. Over the last 4 years, we've helped hundreds of companies use Monday.com for project management. If you need any assistance using Monday.com and want to work with us, feel free to reach out. My contact information is in the description below. And now let's jump into 3 different ways to manage your projects within Monday. The first way that we're going to manage projects within Monday is by having something called a high-level, low-level board structure. What that means essentially is your high-level board tells you about all of your projects. So you can see here, I'm on this board called Projects Overview, and I've called it high level, but it tells me about all of my projects. It doesn't say every single task that we need to do, but this is more for the project managers, the team leaders, or the management team that wants to understand where the projects are holding, but they don't need to see every little task. Now, within this setup, so we have our high level board, which is, like I said, the projects, and then we have low level boards. Now, each low level board is a different project. So you can see here that this is project number 1, and then we have another board called project number 2. Now, what happens is that all of the low level boards connect to the high level board. So you can see here that we have a connected board column. And if I click on this information, you can see that it's connected to project number 1 and project number 2. All that I did was create a connected board column and connect it to those boards. So essentially what that means is that the information from project 1 and 2 is flowing up to this project board. Now, one thing that I want to caution you about is depending on the Monday plan that you're on, there are limitations in terms of how many boards you can connect to your high-level board. They're constantly changing it, but as far as I know, at the time of this recording, if you're on the Pro plan, you can connect 20 boards to a board, which means you would have 20 projects that's connected to one board. And if you're on the enterprise plan, you can connect 60 boards. Again, double check that because it is a number that they have been changing. But essentially, it's a very simple idea. High level board of your projects and low level boards of each individual project. Something for this setup that works really great is when you have really complex projects. I've seen companies, let's say for construction, and they have really complex construction projects. So they want each board to be a different construction project, or someone's building out websites. They want each board to be another website build. If this system works for you, I think it is a fabulous system because you have these different levels of how you can see the information. On the low level board, you can see all of the individual tasks. And on the high level board, you see the projects. And usually this works really well for project manager and management team, and then the people actually doing the tasks. Now, one thing that I want to point out, because people have a hard time with this, is the connected board columns. So I definitely would take the time to learn how to use connected boards. There are also automations that you can automatically match information from one board to another. So I can either use an automation here to automatically connect this to my high-level board, and I can also use something called an item default value. Those are just different ways to automatically connect these items on this board to your high-level board. Now, once you have this high-level board, you can then build a dashboard on top of it. So here you can see I have the status of all of my projects, how many open projects. Here I have my workload widget, which will, there's no data entered now, but essentially show me when people have time, when people don't. And of course, people like adding Gantt charts. You can simply go here, and I can also just add a Gantt chart. And I will have a Gantt chart of all of the different projects. So here you can see this is without setting any of the settings. To make it even better, you can see that I have a Gantt chart. Now, let's move on to option number 2, because some companies don't want to have different boards for each project. Personally, if you ask me, I've been doing this for many years, and I don't think the idea of having a different board for every project is right for every company. I think everyone automatically runs to it, but I don't necessarily think that it's the right thing for every company. Like I said, if you have really complex projects, or they're really, really different, then I would consider it. I personally think that you should have one task board with all of your projects. So the question is, how do you do this? How do you do this kind of project management within one board? So I'm going to show you. As you can see here, we're on this projects board, and essentially I'm going to be using item level and sub items for this. So what I have is here you can see that I have project 1 and project 2. Those are my projects. And then I'm just going to use my sub items for all of my tasks. So here I have task number 1, and then I can add task number 2. And essentially, everything is in one board. My projects on the item level and the sub items are the tasks. This is in my mind, a simpler way to use the boards, but it is much easier. You don't need to worry about connected board columns. You don't have to worry about the limitations, and everything's on one board. Like I said, when you're using a lot of different boards, it's really hard to jump from board to board and understand what you need to do. Here, you can easily see this. And I want to show you one really cool trick. I personally love adding this progress column tracking. And if I, let's just say, would mark these 2 things as done. So you can see on the sub item level, it's telling me, okay, it's done. But honestly, that's not really telling me anything because it's either done or not done. But then what I can do is I can actually roll this up to the item level. So I can do show summary on parent item. And here you can see that I see a summary. So now let's add task number 3 here. Okay. And this is not done. Now I can come and look at my board and I can say, hey, we're 67% of the way done with this specific project. Again, you can pull items and sub items into dashboards. So this is a great setup for someone that doesn't have really complicated projects or doesn't want to be in a lot of boards, which I personally usually recommend. Now, we're going to jump to the third option and the third way that you can manage your projects. This feature is something that is only available on the enterprise level, so you do need to be on enterprise to access this. If I click on this plus button over here, you can see that they've added project management. And I have 3 different kinds of boards. I'm going to start with the portfolio board. The portfolio board is kind of like this over high level board that I spoke about. It shows you all of your projects. Project is an individual board, and capacity manager helps you manage the capacity of everyone on your team. So let's jump in and I'll show you exactly what these look like. In order to show you how this portfolio feature works, I'm going to use an example of one of our clients. This is not real data and it's all fake data, but it is based on an actual client and the work that we did for them. So for this example, I'm calling them CCG Management. And what they did was they actually bought different companies and then they helped fix them up so that way they can become more profitable. Now, when you're purchasing a company, there's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done. So they use the Monday portfolio feature in order to do that due diligence. So let's start over here. And this is our portfolio board. Remember before when we saw the high level board showing all your projects? This is kind of like a much better version of the same thing. So here you can see you have the different projects. It's automatically connected to the project boards, which are the lower level boards. I'm going to get to them, but this is my favorite part. It has this snapshot view, which I think is just a great dashboard. So here you can see how many projects are off track, at risk, on track. And then I can search different information like Home Center is only 28% of the way completed. Acme is 8% of the way completed. I can see all the information here. I also have this Gantt chart that pulls in all of the information in one view. So I can see all of my projects. Now, if we go down a level, so we have like, remember those low level boards? There's actually two kinds of low level boards. Here's a low level boards. And for this example, it's just like the due diligence that they needed. But they also have a resource planner. The resource planner is where they can actually plan the different people on their team when they're going to be doing something and when they're not. Here you can see that most things are not assigned, so that's why there's no information here, but you can essentially plan all of these projects. You have an individual resource planner per project. Now, I want to just talk big picture about how this works. So on the highest level, remember you have the portfolio view. Portfolio view as of now can connect to 200 boards. Remember we said before that if you're doing this high level, low level board, you can either do 20 or 60, depending which plan you're on. Here, portfolio can do 200 boards. I've heard that the goal is to get to 1,000. They're not there yet. They haven't announced it, but I've heard that that's the goal. So if you have a huge company and every single project needs to be a different board, and you have a lot of different projects, let's say like 500 projects or now up to 200, this is a great setup because you have all of these different boards and then you can see it in one place. So the first thing that you have is you have this portfolio view, which like I mentioned is like an overview, that high level board of everything. But then the other really cool thing that you have is that you have an all projects dashboard. Now, this dashboard also can connect to all of your lower boards. So if, let's say for right now, you're doing this, you have 200 boards, that means that this dashboard connects to 200 boards. If you go back to the standard plans and you're not using this feature, on the Pro version, you can only connect 10 boards to a dashboard. And on the Enterprise version, you can only connect 20 to a dashboard. Again, just double check those numbers because they change all the time. However, as far as I know, those are the numbers, but this is a huge difference. So if you have a lot of projects that you need to track, then looking at portfolio may be something that's really helpful for you. Additionally, they have this capacity manager, which pulls in the capacity from all of those lower level capacity boards. And you can see everyone on your team all over the different projects, where they're working and where they're not. I haven't set this up yet, but I just wanted to show you the concept. In summary, if you're looking to use Monday.com for project management, I've shared with you 3 different ways that you can do that. The first way is a high-level, low-level board structure. That means that you have high-level board, one high-level board, and low-level boards, and they all connect. The second is to use one board with items for your projects and sub-items for your tasks. And the third is to use the Monday.com portfolio feature. Again, this is only an enterprise version feature for if you're on enterprise. I'd love to hear in the comments below which of these project management setups is working for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and remember to subscribe to receive tips and tricks on how to use Monday.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.